Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this, the next in our sessions of In Conversation With, and actually a live In Conversation With. So really excited. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. The theme of this afternoon's session is entitled Street Games, the Next Generation. So we're delighted we've been joined by three young people that all have got a different story, a different journey to tell about their history and their current work with street games. It's a little bit like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, really, because we've got Jason, who's been around street games as long as lots of people have. And then we've got Ellie, who's been around street games for a bit. And then we've got Lizzie joining us, who's really new to street games as well. And I guess somewhere in that, I'm going to try and play the Goldilocks role. So we're going to have a conversation with our three young people based on their experiences of street games, what they've done with street games, and perhaps how they see themselves as being the next generation as part of this story. Remember, hashtag Power of Place for the whole Street Games Conference. I'm also joined by Street Games Head of Research and Insight, that's Ceris Anderson, who, as well as being fabulous in the role of Research and Insight, also makes a brilliant radio DJ talk show host, and she will be leading a Q&A session at the end of this afternoon's conversation. So at any time, if you want to pose questions to any of our three young people, please use the chat box. Pop it in the chat box, get some conversation going in there, and then we'll bring Ceris in towards the end of the session just to bring forward some of your questions. So you don't need to ask them in person, drop them in the box. Ceris will raise them with the young people, and you can get the answers to hopefully send you away later this evening inspired and knowing that the future and that next generation of street games is in really good hands. So, welcome, Jason, Ellie, and Lizzie. I want to start first of all by just getting you to introduce yourselves a little bit, and I'd like you just give us a quick 60 seconds about who you are, whereabouts you are in the world, and just what you're up to these days, whether you're working, whether you're volunteering, whether you're still at school or education, whatever it is. So, first of all, we're going to go across to the mighty Warrington and introduce Jason. Jason, good afternoon. Just tell us a little bit about you, my friend.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason. I've been involved in street games for longer than I'd like to admit. Currently, I am living in Warrington, which is a little, I say a little town, it's quite big now, isn't it? A big town in between Manchester and Liverpool. So I'm a wall. So I'm on the outskirts of Liverpool. And currently I'm working in a community setting, community sport for Manchester City in the community as their community outreach officer for mental health.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jason. Good to see you again. Let's now go across to, that's representing Warrington. So then we've got Ellie, who's representing Leeds at the moment, but also playing a double role representing the Midlands as well, and Birmingham. Ellie, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Ellie, and I started street games back in, well, when I was 12. I'm now 21 in Birmingham, and I'm now in Leeds studying sport and exercise science at Leeds Beckett. I'm currently waiting for my dissertation results, so I'm in third year, and then hopefully next year I'm going back to the Midlands to do my PGCE for secondary sport.
Brilliant. Fingers crossed for that, Ellie. We all wish you well for that.
Thank you.
And then let's drop down from, we've been Warrington, Leeds to Birmingham, so let's go down to London now and introduce Lizzie. Lizzie, welcome to the Street Games family. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, Lizzie, where you are in the world, what you're up to.
Hi, my name is Lizzie and I'm 14 years old and I'm from Southeast London and I'm studying in secondary school, PE, geography and food tech.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lizzie. Welcome all three of you. So to get us going, I want to take you back to your first ever experience of something that you might call or think was street games. So I don't know whether this was somebody dragged you along to a session or you went to an event or somebody told you about something, but I want you to think right back to the very first time you did something that you think was probably somewhat to do with street games. Just tell us a little bit about how that was, what it looked like, what it felt like, how you felt turning up for the first time. Ellie, let's go to you first if we can. So we're back in the Midlands, are we now? We're back to George Salter. What was that first experience of something that was sort of street games?
Yeah, so I'd say little old me in year 7, first year of high school. and we had Kate Roberts working there. And I think pretty much as you said, I got dragged along to a doorstep club probably after I'd already done a session after school. And I think that's my first experience of anything to do with street games. But the thing that sticks out in my head is probably the first festival that I attended. And I think that was in London. So yeah, Street Games Festival.
Brilliant. Can you remember who did the dragging, Ellie? Who dragged you along to that session?
It will have been Kate, I think.
Was it Kate? So it was
Yeah.
Kate as a coach who now works for Street Games, and she said, come along, come to this. How did you feel, Ellie, turning up that first time?
I think because I've always been involved in sport, I loved it, but it was probably, I can't remember what sport it was, but I think it was probably one that I hadn't played as much as, so I was probably a little bit nervous, but it was always good to try something new. And I think doorstep clubs were good for that because it wasn't always your standard like football, netball, hockey sports. It was, I think we played handball in a doorstep club, which was good because I now play that at uni, so that's helped me as well.
So it felt a little different, perhaps felt a little bit scary, but you went along and you give it a go. Great.
Yeah,
Lizzie, you're quite new to Street Games. Tell us about perhaps your first time that perhaps you turned up at something that felt a little bit like Street Games.
So I used to be a participant at this summer camp where we do sports, and then I gradually kept coming, and then I became an ambassador, and Street Games is kind of linked to the ambassador course.
Brilliant. Lizzie, when you were a participant on that summer camp, who did you go with? Why did you go?
I went with my siblings because they were being advertised in my primary school.
Brilliant. So you saw the poster, or somebody give you a flyer, or sent you something via Facebook. You thought, go on, we'll turn up at that. How did it feel that first session when you turned up?
I was kind of shy at the first, so that kind of scared. And then when I kept coming, I actually really enjoyed it.
And can you remember that first activity that you did, the first sport thing that you did?
I actually don't remember. It's a very long time ago.
Yeah, probably can't remember too. Who's looking around seeing us there. Now, Jason, let's ask you the same question. Now we've got to wind back quite a long time here, Jason. But where was that first experience of Street Games? What did it look like? What did it feel like?
Yeah, so my first memory of kind of being a participant at a club that was a Street Games club was probably I was probably 9 or 10, going as a participant on a rugby camp in Warrington, run by the Warrington Wolves Foundation. And I think, to be honest, generally it was just me and my brother are quite similar in age. We're full of energy, so my mum just dumped us a half-term camp, and we were kind of participants there just to try and get our energy out playing sport. And then magically, fast forward, I'm not going to say how many years, I'm still involved in sport. So yeah, kind of that first one was just to try and get our energy out, and we found something that we were really passionate about, I guess.
So Jason, was that your choice, or was that your mum's choice that you went along?
I think it was more my mum's choice than mine, just because I think she was just sick of us. It was probably 3 weeks into the summer holidays. She was done. Decided to I make her out to be horrible, don't I, dumping it as a camp, but you know what it's like. We get we get on the end of a tether, and she kind of threw us into this rugby camp and said, go and spell all your energy out and come back knackered, please.
Okay, so you went day one. Did you want to go back day two, or was it still back to your mum kicking you out and saying, get back to day two of camp?
No, absolutely. I think it's one of them things with the Street Games project. I guess it's kind of, once you're there, you kind of catch the bug and you want to be involved as much as possible. And I think that's something that's carried on into my 20s, never mind into my teenage years. So I think once you get that first taste of a Street Games project, you catch the bug and you want to keep going back.
Brilliant. Good to hear. So I think what Street Games really sets out to do as part of its DNA through delivery of doorstep sport, and lots of our friends in locally trusted organisations are joining us for this conversation today, is we love that idea of people come along and they come for the first time, be it because they've seen an advert or they've been dragged there by the coach or the mum's chucked them into it, and we want to build that engagement, and we want to really support young people to come along, enjoy what's happening, but really get on that path straight away towards actually you can be involved in this session, you can take a role, so your voice matters in this session. And that sort of pathway that starts with you perhaps just sussing it out, then starting to get a bit involved, and then looking around and thinking, do you know what? Perhaps there are some people like me here that are doing a bit more. Perhaps they're starting to help out, perhaps starting to volunteer, all that sort of stuff. So I'm interested in taking you on a bit of a journey through perhaps why you went on that journey and started to get more involved. So you weren't just involved in turning up, but you've started to get a little bit more involved. Already heard the words ambassador and things like that coming through. Let's go back to Ellie. Ellie, this idea of starting to get involved and doing more and more with Street Games, to be more and more involved with that locally trusted organisation with George Salter. Was it fun? Did you enjoy that, getting more and more involved? Because I guess to have fun and things to be fun really matter to us, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think as much sport as I did within school, I think Street Games was always good because it was something external from that. So although we had some similar faces from school, you also met other people from the surrounding area that didn't necessarily go to the same school as you. It was always fun because I think everybody that went wanted to be there. It wasn't like you were forced to go and you didn't want to be there, like an extracurricular activity at school that you get forced to do. I think people went to Street Games clubs because they wanted to be there, and they wanted to take part in sport. And at the end of the day, I think everybody has that in common when you go to a club like that. So it was always fun. And I think in terms of progressing, like I went from being a part of just going, like just tagging along after school, and then I started to do a bit more volunteering, and then I took on one of the doorstep clubs. So we did a running club called Club One. I think that's what it was called, after school. So I kind of took a lead on that, recruited a few more people to go, and I enjoyed that. And then as well as that, I also took part in it. So I got both sides of that, which was really good, and that was kind of the start of my journey.
So it sounds like you're starting to sort of become a Kate Roberts number 2. You've started to develop your own session in that Club One way. That idea of you motivating your friends and saying, look, we can go and do something. We'll do it as a group, and I'm going to organise it, and all that sort of stuff. Is that fun, Ellie? That sounds like hard work to me, trying to motivate your friends.
No, absolutely not. I think because of the kind of lead that it took, it was never forced upon them, and it was never any extra effort. It was always more of like a come if you want to. It's going to be fun. It's going to be enjoyable. There was never any pressure to go. As I said, like it wasn't like a PE lesson or like anything that you had to go to. You were being forced to go. Especially like there was quite a lot of girls that went. So like all of my friendship group, we were all sporty, but if you say to many people, let's go for a run, even if you're sporty or not, like a run never seems that great. But I think because yes, it was fitness, but you were with your friends, you were having a laugh, you could have a chat along the way. And as I said, it was never pressure. Like, yes, it could be competitive if you wanted it to be, but it was more of the enjoyment factor, I think, for everybody.
Brilliant. Lizzie, you talked about becoming an ambassador. So you're there, you've started to get involved in that camp, you became an ambassador. Tell me a little bit more about what that meant.
Becoming an ambassador was like a big step from like just taking part into like helping out the coaches and supporting the children with the sports and stuff.
And that helping out, Lizzie, that is brilliant when young people want to do that, isn't it? And I guess your coaches are always looking for more young people to come and help out. The more that people help out, the more that you're involved and that sort of stuff. Was that enjoyable for you, Lizzie? I get the idea that it's fun taking part. Was it fun helping out as well?
Yeah, but it's like more like work put onto you to like help out and stuff.
But you still enjoyed it?
Yeah.
Good. That's good to hear. Jason, what about you? What was you went on a journey with Warrington Wolves, obviously, and started to volunteer and do that sort of stuff. Did you enjoy doing that? Did you have fun, or were you missing that sort of the rough and tumble of the rugby?
Yeah, I guess it kind of just happened naturally, to be honest, because I was a bit like a bad smell, I guess, and you couldn't get rid of me at the sessions, and you couldn't get rid of me in and around the place. And I think it just got to a point where I wanted to do things because I was enjoying just being around the environment so much, and kind of getting more and more responsibility within that environment kind of helped me along. And then it came, it's funny actually, it hit me like a brick wall at 18, I guess, when we start, well, just before 18, 16, 17, when you start doing applications for unis and stuff like that. And then they're saying, oh, you've done loads of volunteering here. And I felt a bit guilty putting it in because it was just something I enjoyed. It wasn't really, you know, something that I saw as, oh, I'm giving my time back to people or anything like that. It was more the enjoyment element, and I was just sticking around. And then it came to the end of it, and I'd learned all these skills, and I could put this on my CV and stuff like that. I felt a little bit guilty, to be honest.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. We did lots of work, Jason, in Street Games about trying to understand perhaps why young people go on this journey, and as well as that experience of young people starting to volunteer and help out and lead and coach and call it whatever you will, about it being fun. But you've just said something there about this idea of giving back as well. And we seem to think from conversations with young people that actually there is this real desire that I do want to give something back. I mean, the real crossroad is altruism for it. You know, I mean, it's this idea of giving back for no reason other than I really want to give back. And you just said that, Jason. Tell me a bit more about that idea that you were thinking that I'll give back here.
Yeah, I guess for me, Street Games and charities like Street Games kind of create a community, create an environment that you want to be part of, and also create a community where you want to kind of be with like-minded people and help like-minded people as well. So it got to a point where maybe I was seeing those kids starting at 11 and I was at 16, and I want them to get to a point where they're kind of developing along the same lines as me, or even when I'm however old I am now. I'm not gonna state that because I'm an old bloke now, but it just kind of, I feel like this community is just, it's growing and growing, and it's created as you go along. It's like got friends all over the country now because of Street Games. You get to, you know, we've traveled up and down the country as well, and I think that whole community, and there's no more, I'd say, borders, to be honest. And it's quite a cliche to say sport, breaking down borders through sport or whatever it is, but it really does. It breaks down communities, and it kind of creates its own little environment in itself, I'd say.
It's really nice to hear, and I'm sure people listening at home and at work will associate with that. Remember, folks, hashtag #PowerUpPlace, and use the chat box, guys. Get your comments going, your questions and answers for the panel. I'm just talking here about giving back, this idea of perhaps about people put on sessions for you and you really enjoyed it, so now you want to get involved in putting sessions on for the next wave of young people. Is that something that matters to you, Lizzie?
Yeah.
What makes you want to do that? Why do you want to do that?
Just like seeing kids running around and having fun with their friends. It's just like, yeah.
You get something from that. That's
yeah.
Brilliant. Ellie, what about yourself? Obviously, there was a young Kate Roberts giving her time up to coach this group of young people at George Salter as part of that doorstep club, and then all of a sudden there's an Ellie wanting to coach young people. Was that about giving back? Did you want to put back in because of that?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I saw myself and all of my friends grow up with it, and I think it's definitely helped like loads and loads of people that I grew up with, in terms of like keeping them off the streets, keeping them out of trouble, and just giving them something to enjoy. I think something a bit different, like not just going into school every day and going home and, you know, doing whatever they do, like either on the streets getting in trouble or sat at a PlayStation or something like that. It gives them something else to enjoy, and I think I've seen that firsthand with some of my friends from back in the day at school. And I'd like to think that I could do the same now.
Is that something that you've talked about, Ellie, when you've obviously gone to university now in Leeds? So you're around other people that come from different sport backgrounds, perhaps more traditional playing of sport, and yet you've got this real good understanding of what we would call doorstep sport. Do you talk to them about this idea about there is this community that just wants to deliver to each other and give back to each other? Have you talked to them?
Yeah, definitely. I think some people especially in sport, sometimes don't realise how lucky they are with like supportive parents, like money coming in through their family and being able to afford like all the equipment in the world, like all these sessions, like paying subs and fees and things. And some people I've grown up with and some people back home have never been like stable enough to afford these like weekly and monthly fees and being able to pay match fees and stuff. So yeah, definitely like organisations like StreetGames provide that for people that can't necessarily afford big clubs and stuff. So yeah, I think it's crucial that something like this exists so that they can do what they want to do and they can play sport without the mass money behind it.
Love that. Thank you, Ellie. Jason, I'm going to turn back to yourself now. You talked about taking part in lots of different things with Street Games, and this idea about doorstep sport and taking part and helping and coaching and volunteering brings belonging. This idea that you belong. So I can get the idea that you belong to that session, and I can absolutely picture you strapped in the middle of that session at Warrington Wolves. But then you talked about doing other things with Street Games, other programs, and how you felt that you belong now to a much wider family of people just like you. Lots of Jasons, and lots of Ellies, and lots of Lizzies up and down the country, all doing things with their own locally trusted organisations, but also taking part in wider things as well. Any examples, Jason, of where you've done perhaps stuff with Street Games and you found, you know what, I don't just belong in Warrington, I belong to this much bigger family of coaches? I
think an example I use quite a lot in everything is the 2014 Camp Glasgow, and its kind of effects on my kind of outlook on things, I guess. And I think that was a real opportunity, and it was a real good showing of the community side of Street Games. There was projects coming from all over the country. Was that the camping trip? Yeah, the camping trip out there. Yeah, but yeah, those projects coming from all over the country, and it was a weird one. I say weird. It was a nice weird, because these projects had turned up in minibuses over a 2-week period, and straight away we'd be able to strike up a conversation, have a chat, show them to the tents. Right, we're straight in. Let's go play some tri-ball or whatever it is. And I think that's real testament to the environment that's kind of been created, is that there's people there that if you looked at them on paper, they wouldn't have anything in common other than sport, that are managing to build those relationships, managing to kind of speak to each other after being complete strangers just because of this environment that's been created. Wow.
Ellie, you talked about an experience that stood out to you. You talked about going to a festival in London. Tell us a bit about that, because I guess it doesn't matter whether it's a camp up in Glasgow for the Commonwealth Games or it's a day out at the Multisport Festival. This coming together of lots of people from different backgrounds and different communities and different experiences, but then perhaps we're all there, we're all helping each other out, we're all taking part together, and we all feel that we sort of belong as part of this wider Street Games family. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so again, it was a day outside of school. So in itself, it was like a school trip basically, but obviously run by young volunteers in Street Games. So it was a multi-sport festival, as you said, and it just gave us the opportunity to play sport, like different kind of sports. So I'd never played like Zorb football or spike ball or things like that until you go there. And there's like little stations all set up by young volunteers. And yeah, you just get different opportunities. So like you spend like, I don't know, a full day there, but you play hundreds of different sports. Again, I played handball there properly, like against other teams. I think it was at the Copper Box. It was quite a big one. There was like dodgeball, handball, Zorb football, indoors and outdoors, and it's just like a range of what mad sports that you'd never play on a day-to-day basis.
And you saw those volunteers there, Ellie, and you became a volunteer. Did you want to be like them? Did you think, oh, I want to do a bit of that?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as Jason said, like once you're involved in Street Games, you just constantly want to progress and move to that next step, because you see the people around you and you see what they're doing and you're like, yeah, I want to do that. Like once you've been the young person involved in doorstep clubs, you see the young volunteers that are running it and you're like, yeah, one day I want to do that. and again give back to the younger people.
I like that. I like that. Lizzie, I'm going to come back to you as well, and perhaps slightly newer on that journey of StreetGames. So you're writing the next chapter. Plenty of chapters before from Jason, but we're always interested in new chapters, Lizzie. And this idea of really feeling this belonging piece. So the idea of you become an ambassador, you're part of Burgess Sports down there in southeast London. How important is it that through being that ambassador, you really sort of feel that I have this belonging to this organisation, or I have this belonging to this community, or I have this belonging to this delivery of doorstep sport? How does that matter for you?
It's just like one big family at Burgess Sports. So yeah, if you see someone upset, then like you're gonna want to go to them, because like we're like brothers and sisters there.
Wow, wow, wow! And you help to maintain that sense of belonging, Lizzie. Do you constantly think about that?
Yeah, like there's never a time where you feel like excluded in anything that we do there. Like everybody, it's a very inclusive place where like nobody's like left out, or if you see someone left out, like the children will just like instantly know to like go to that person to try and bring them in.
Sounds like there's a really important feel behind that organisation, and that's a really important value, whether you're the coach, you're the volunteer, you're the helper, you're the participant, or you're the new person turning up. It's always about everybody being included and part of it. That sounds like it's really important to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Remember, hashtag Power of Place, folks that are listening at home and in the office, at StreetGames, chat box, questions and answers. And we've just got one more round really to go with these young people, and then we can invite some questions via Ceris Anderson. So questions into the chat box. Question really to all three of you. We've talked about this idea of your getting involved in StreetGames, participating in the programs, volunteering, helping, coaching, about it being fun. And we talked about this idea of giving back, this doing it for others, that feeling that comes through from all three of you about I belong as part of the StreetGames family, a family of LTOs, a family of volunteers. I want you to think back now about your experiences in StreetGames, where you're looking back now. Obviously, Jason, you're up and working full-time as a coach. Ellie, you're studying, and Lizzie, you're on that journey. What has been involved in StreetGames programs really done for you as a person? So I'm going to go Ellie first, I think, with this. Ellie, what's it done? You look back now, you're 21. So what, if you look back across that sort of 10 years of being around, what's it done for you? What have you got out of it about Ellie? Why is Ellie, how has Ellie developed? What's good for Ellie about this?
I think it's given me loads of experience in life and loads of different opportunities. Just coming to uni in itself, and before that, I was awarded a scholarship at Bromsgrove School for netball, and I think without StreetGames and without that, like the sense of support and like a family and keeping me on track in school and outside of school with sport, I think that's helped me in itself. Just basically keeping me on the straight and narrow and keeping me on board with what I've always wanted to do, because I could have quite easily like gone off the rails and, you know, lost my head in school, but I didn't. And I think along with sport and StreetGames together, it's definitely helped, and it's pushed me to do what I want to do now, which is to continue in sport and to again give back, but in maybe a different sense in teaching. So yeah, as I said, hopefully I'm going on to do my PGCE, but not only that, I've done things like I've been on youth panels for interviews, and that in itself is a massive experience, because as far as I know, not many people get to do that, you know, in their early 20s. So that's been a real good experience, and just seeing how different interview processes happen and giving my voice as well, which I think has helped giving a different perspective on it. So yeah, so many different experiences have pushed me to where I am right now.
I love that. Thank you, Ellie. There's a lot in that for me. Thank you for that. Lizzie, what about yourself? So what has that journey through Burgess Sport, becoming an ambassador, what has that done for Lizzie? What about you as a person? What's it done for you?
One main thing that I think like I've gained from the whole experience is like confidence, because without confidence, like you can't really be doing what I like to.
What else, Lizzie? What else?
Another thing is like being like empathetic towards people.
Yeah.
Because like everybody like needs to be shown some type of like love, or like to be shown some like care, so like they know that someone's there to support them.
I like that. Lizzie, just one more question for you. I've really enjoyed listening to your story this afternoon. When you're talking about this Lizzie that is confident and this Lizzie that is empathetic, great word, love it. Have other people seen that in you, Lizzie? Do you know what I mean? Other people around you, might be family, might be teachers, might be friends. Have other people seen a confident Lizzie coming out, an empathetic Lizzie coming out?
Yeah, my family a lot have like seen that, the confidence in me, and like my friends and my teachers. Yeah.
Brilliant. And as an audience live, I'm going to watch the pre-record here that will also see a confident Lizzie. So that's great. Jason, what about yourself? What's that whole journey in Street Games done for Jason.com? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I guess, to be honest with you, Street Games has shaped everything that I've done for the last so many 17, 18 years. I guess it's given me so much personally, professionally. You're building upon them skills, them personal skills, confidence, self-esteem, all that we learned through, you guys taking a shot on us, giving us a chance, getting us involved within, decision making and all sorts. And then professionally as well, I guess in general, I wouldn't be in the job I'm in community sport without Street Games here. I wouldn't have gone on to do my undergrad and my masters without Street Games. So yeah, I owe a lot. At risk of sounding soft, I owe a lot to Street Games. You always hold quite a nice place close to me, and I guess also the last thing is probably relationships for life, with loads of people across the UK. I was on the phone to Carl Barry in Newcastle yesterday. He's going to be coming down to my wedding. Like it's we've kind of built those relationships that are long lasting with like-minded people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. So yeah, huge.
Brilliant. I'm just going to play a point back to you, Jason, because it's not that you owe Street Games. None of you on the call owe Street Games, because you are Street Games. There's an important difference there. You've been fabulous, Jason, Ellie, and Lizzie. Brilliant. I'm just going to pass over to my colleague Ceris now, just to sort of take any comments really from the chat box, any Q&A, just to sort of answer anything that's coming from the listening audience. Ceris.
Yeah. Thanks, Graham, and thank you, Jason, Ellie and Lizzie. That's been so interesting and helpful. We've got a couple of questions in. The first one's from Claire, and she has said, I'd love to know what you would say to an organisation that's thinking about developing a volunteer or leadership programme. Why should they, if they asked you, why should we provide the opportunities? Why should they?
Okay, let's where should we go first? Ellie, you bump into an organisation in Leeds and you get chatting to them while you're at university, and they say, well, I've heard about this volunteer leadership thing, but why should we bother with that? Why don't we just carry on with what we're doing? What would you say?
I'd say the biggest thing that makes Street Games different and sets it apart from the rest is they actually listen to the young people, and they take on board everything young people have to say. I think in the call this morning that I had with Lucy, we spoke about youth voice. So we actually ask young people what they want to do, what would make the sessions better, what would improve the sessions, and it's not just coming from an older person's perspective, because we think very differently, and that's why we do youth voice and youth panels and everything, because we do have very different opinions. And I think with Street Games being as they are, they ask and they always want to learn what makes sessions better, what young people are interested in nowadays. Like obviously times change, so I think they keep up with with what young people want as the times are moving. And it doesn't
It would be a
ever
great
stop.
suggestion to that organisation, wouldn't it? That the idea of volunteering and leadership is a way to get youth voice, but not just to listen to it, but to act upon it and stay with what young people want. What do you think, Lizzie? What would you say to another organisation about them thinking about getting young people as volunteers? They might be quite nervous about it. They might think, oh my word, I don't know if I can do this. What would you say to them about getting more young people involved?
Yeah, I feel like as Ellie said, is different as they actually ask young people what they want, and like they want to learn about art, about it from our perspective, and
Brilliant. Ceris, back to yourself. Another question.
Okay, yeah, there's a second question in from Hannah. Thanks, Hannah. And she has said, what do Jason, Ellie and Lizzie think Street Games should be thinking about next for young people who are just joining a local youth or sports club? So what should Street Games be thinking next for young people?
Let's go Jason with that first, Jason, because you've been part of it for a long time. But when you want to looking at crystal ball, what should be coming over the horizon? What's next?
I mean, it's such at times it can be a bit of a difficult question because it's kind of different in different areas of the country. But what I'd say for me is the pandemic's had such an effect on everything in all of our lives. And I think we'd be not fools, but we'd be silly to ignore that. And I'd say our bounce back from the pandemic and looking at stuff like people's access to sport and like the Fit and Fed program and the meals and stuff like that, alongside Ellie, you mentioned the sport as well earlier, didn't you? The access alongside the mental health and well-being stuff that definitely needs to be done, because there's going to be a excuse the term, but there's going to be a pandemic after the pandemic with young people in terms of mental health and well-being and people struggling and stuff like that. And I think, to be honest, the last 18 months are going to have a real effect for the next 5-10 years on the provision going forward. So I'd say, for me, that the things that need to be prioritised going forward would be that real recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you. Lizzie, I'm going to ask you the same question, and I'm deliberately asking you this because you shared that you're 14 years of age, and that's a real milestone at times in sport, Lizzie, because what happens is we know from our participation in sport really generally that when people get to 14, lots of people stop taking part in sport because lots of other things get more exciting, don't they? Do you know what I mean? We start to meet new people and do different things, and perhaps sport drops off the radar. We were talking, Lizzie, about you being 14, and 14 is a really interesting time in sport, because what we know is that lots of people stop taking part in sport when they get to 14, Lizzie, because you get lots of other stuff in your life which might be a bit more cooler. You meet new people, you do different things, and right across sport there's a bit of a drop-off. You're probably the best placed person to tell us, what should we be thinking about doing? What's the next things that Street Games should think about? Because we want to make sure that all the 14-year-old Lizzies up and down the country are still with us when they're 18-year-old Lizzies, they're still taking part in sport. And then when the 20-year-old Lizzies, they're still taking part in sport. Might not be with Street Games LTO, but they're still there. What should we be thinking about to get to that point?
I think like you guys should be thinking about like how to like promote street games like on social media or like around like when you like put like letters in people's letterboxes. That's how like one way you should promote it, to get like people like more involved and like more aware of what you guys are doing.
So keeping up that marketing it, spreading the message, keeping people understanding what it looks like, what it feels like, and that sort of stuff, that could be important. Ellie, what about yourself? It sounds like you're going to go into teaching, so there could be a time in the next 2 years where the 22-year-old, 23-year-old Ellie starts to teach a 13-year-old Ellie in a class. What do you think that 13-year-old Ellie would be saying for the next 10 years? This is what Street Games should focus on.
Yeah, I think, as you said, that's kind of the age where people can drop out of sport and find other things that can, you know, keep them occupied. But if you keep with it and keep with the time, like I said, like Street Games do it quite well anyway. But keep up with the young people and don't let it like fall behind and then find something better and to do. So yeah, just as I said, like I think keep up with their ideas and keep following what they want. Give them what they want. If they want to play, you know, like something a bit different that they might not play every day, I think try and make that available for them, because anybody can go to just a football club or just a netball club. But I think Street Games has always offered something a little bit different, which I think is quite enticing to young people because it's not just your standard sport.
So keep it fun, keep it funky, keep it current.
Keep it a bit different, yeah.
Keep it different, keep promoting it. As Lizzie says, we've got to keep sharing it, promoting it in ways that young people access it. And Jason raises a good point as well about making sure that through that sport, we can also support young people around sort of returning from the pandemic, because it's been a really, really weird, hasn't it, 16 months. We've never known anything like it. It's been a complete leveler. Sometimes we look to adults for experience. Nobody's had any experience in this last 16 months. So what people experienced was absolutely what they got. And Jason, you're quite right that takes some supporting as we build back from it. Ceris, any more questions in our Q&A? We've got time for one more.
Yeah, we have. We've got one more. Thank you from Kate. She says, why do you think volunteering could be really important for young people who may be struggling in other aspects of life? Maybe have you got any examples of volunteers you've worked with where volunteering has been a real game changer for them?
Okay, we can all take this one then. So Jason, first to you there. Where has volunteering really worked? We've seen a friend, a peer, somebody else, and you thought, yeah, that's really the right thing for you at this time in life. What was working there?
I think for me, it's all of the personal skills you get through volunteering that are the most important things, and the most important things is kind of the stuff where you put yourself out of your comfort zone, you're putting yourself in front of a group of people. These are the things that you can't replicate in other places, other than, we're in an advantage, and I mentioned it earlier, but we're at an advantage where we've been volunteers for so long that when we come to 18, when we come to 20, and we come to our first, job interviews, our first time we've got to talk in front of people, it comes naturally because we've been doing it since we were 11. So what I'd say to anybody who's thinking about volunteering is get involved, get your hands dirty. It might seem dirty, it might seem daunting at first, but when you get into it and when you've done it for a couple of years or even a couple of months, you'll start reaping the rewards.
Brilliant, thank you. Lizzie, I'm going to ask you the same question. So perhaps thinking about people that you know that perhaps school's not working out well for them at the moment, or perhaps stuff at home's not working out so well, but actually they still get something out of coming and volunteering and helping or being an ambassador. Have you seen any of that, Lizzie? Any of that happened?
One of my friends, they're going through like mental illnesses right now, and what I took them to Badger Sports, so they were volunteering with me, and I think it really got the things that were happening at home out of her mind. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds really important at that time of life for your friend there, Lizzie. Yeah. Wow. Ellie, last answer comes your way, my friend. So we're thinking now about all that journey that started becoming a volunteer with Kate Roberts, but there are thousands of volunteers up and down the country in Street Games. What do some of those volunteers get out of volunteering that they might not get from school, college, other programs, other things they get involved in? Why is volunteering it?
I think from a personal point of view, back in the day when I was in senior school, I grew up with some of my closest friends, to be honest, who weren't recognised as the greatest students in school, did struggle academically, and teachers didn't really understand them in a school sense, like in lessons and around the school. Whereas after school, you put them in, a doorstep sport club or any kind of sport like setting, and they're a completely different person. They come out their shell. They're a completely different person in terms of confidence, like, and you just see a completely different side to them. And as I said earlier, I think it's quite important that it can keep them out of trouble. Like, I grew up in quite a disadvantaged area in Birmingham, like not the greatest of places, so crime was quite high, like drugs were quite high, and I think for some of them it kind of saved them, in terms of they didn't go out and do that after school. Instead they were with us, you know, doing something that benefited them and that they enjoyed as well. So it wasn't like they were forced to be there by any teachers in school, but they actually wanted to be there. And again, they progressed and became volunteers, and it gave them something to do, and it gave them something to like look forward to as well. It was different to like homework after school, or, you know, like academic sessions. It was something, somewhere they wanted to be and somewhere they felt safe as well.
Something quite special about it, isn't it? From all three of your stories, there's something quite special about getting involved. And you've all three got different things from it, and some have got the same things from it. All that remains for me to do is thank all three of you for giving me time up this afternoon and sharing so openly about your various journeys in street games. And I really do hope that continues. And thank you on behalf of all those young people that exist out there in the Street Games Network, that with your different elements of volunteering and coaching and ambassador work, you really make a difference to other young people as well. And that's a really important thing. So thank you to Lizzie. Thank you to Ellie. Thank you to Jason. Thanks also to my colleague, Ceris Anderson, for manning the Q&A panel. And then thank you to everybody listening. Please enjoy the rest of the conference. Keep the conversations going on social media. And I bid you all a really safe evening. Thanks very much.